Striking scenes of violence and destruction from Belfast last week. A bus was hijacked and set on fire by young people faithful to loyalist or unionist groups in Northern Ireland. Cars were burned, groups threw bricks and bombs at each other and at police. This sort of thing has happened here before, but not lately. Why is it happening now? Andrew Sanders, a professor at Texas A&M San Antonio, explains.
A decision came back from the Public Prosecution Service of Northern Ireland that a number of politicians were not going to be prosecuted for taking part in a funeral last year at the height of COVID restrictions. Now, the funeral was of a leading member of the Irish Republican Army, and 24 senior members of Sinn Féin, which is a party that's had historic associations with the IRA, were at the funeral among 2,000 mourners. And last year in Northern Ireland, there were pretty strict regulations in place for any public event, including funerals. So the perception was there that the politicians were allowed to do this. Why aren't we allowed to do this? And an inquiry was launched, and it gave its decision this week. So the rioting is in direct response to that, but there are also a number of layers to this that go back 5 years, 25 years, even 100 years.
The death of Prince Philip may have put a freeze on the clashes, but that freeze may only be temporary.
We're starting to get into the summer months in Northern Ireland, and traditionally we see a lot of marches. Those are from the Protestant Unionist Loyalist community, the Orange Order marches, the Apprentice Boys of Derry March, a number of organizations holding marches. When we go back to the 1960s, those marches were incredibly provocative. Indeed, it was a loyalist march in the city of Derry in August of 1969 that prompted the Northern Ireland government to ask for British troops to be deployed to Northern Ireland. British troops deployed in August of 1969 and didn't leave until 2007. That's the single longest operation in British military history in the United Kingdom. And it was all kicked off, again, a long sequence of events, but the spark was a loyalist march. So we know the summer months can be divisive. We know that it's likely that there's going to be trouble. And this is a very worrying sign as we start to get into the summer months.
Though the recent violence has been condemned, Sanders says more could be done.
Rhetorically, we've seen a little bit of action from London, from the Westminster government, but it's really not enough to send a few tweets and say, stop this. I've met a lot of the community workers in Northern Ireland who are doing great work with young people. But again, there's always that pull, the allure of violence, those traditions within families and communities, and fighting against those is going to be hard.
The fear is that more people could be drawn into the conflict.
If paramilitaries pull their support for peace and start to get involved in violence again, these young kids are ready for the call. And it's very worrying to see that, because it's not inconceivable that one of these young people could very easily kill themselves or another young person through their actions.
The latest violence comes just as it seemed. Northern Ireland was turning a corner.
The Game of Thrones show was bringing tourists from all around the world to Northern Ireland, and it was really starting to boom. But simmering away has been this conflict where, a significant portion of the people in Northern Ireland experienced violence either directly or indirectly, whether that be someone who was killed, someone who was seriously injured, a business that was destroyed, and that's always been there.
I would appeal to those who wish to engage in such activity not to. It serves no purpose.
And the spiral of retaliation, there's always potential for that. And that's where things can be really dangerous, obviously not just for the people who are directly affected, but for broader communities too.
One Belfast official called for a community-wide reckoning.
I think that we've all got to kind of reflect on what we're doing at the minute. It's just about our collective actions as a society and how we sort this mess out.
This is Inside Edition Digital.